Now to tonight's first big question. Is the Ayatollah losing his grip on Iran? We just saw that heartbreaking image from Tehran, a young woman shot to death during a protest over the weekend. The cell phone video has been one of the most viewed clips on YouTube. It is an unforgettable image of revolution. But is it a pivotal moment like these from other revolutions around the world? Take a look.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
That final image of Tiananmen Square became a worldwide symbol of revolutionary defiance. But it's important to remember, obviously, China's pro-democracy protest failed 20 years ago. So what will happen in Iran? We're going to talk about that with our panel. Tonight's first big question: is the Ayatollah losing his grip on Iran? Fareed Zakaria, host of CNN's Fareed Zakaria GPS, with us tonight. Parag Khanna, senior fellow at the New America Foundation, and CNN senior political analyst Jeffrey Toobin joining us as well. So let's bottom line that question. Is the Ayatollah losing his grip a little bit, Fareed?
Well, there's no question that he is weaker today than he's ever been before, because his authority has been questioned by very senior members from within the establishment. Rafsanjani, who was a president himself, who was the head of a very important constitutional body. Mousavi, who was a former prime minister. Khatami, the former president. These are big figures. These are not street protesters. So there is a kind of a factionalization of the state itself. Now, Khamenei still controls the guns, and best we know, he controls the money. Remember, these are the two forces they have going for them: the army and the paramilitary, and the oil money. So at the end of the day, he's probably going to win. But it's going to look very different, I think, than it has for the last 10 years. It's going to be a more divided state, and one that has to use a lot more repression to keep things together.
So bad news. I mean, repression, you see the direction they're going, not opening it up and allowing more freedom.
Precisely.
What do you think, Prem?
Well, Khamenei must surely know what we already know here, which is that Rafsanjani and others are already getting together and sketching out what the next regime is going to look like. How much power will the supreme leader have? What will the balance of power be, or separation of powers, we might say, although I'm sure Jeff can comment more on separation of powers, but between the secular authorities and the divine and so forth, that it does have to be remapped. No doubt the Ayatollah controls the guns, and Rafsanjani, however, does have a lot of money himself. The rumor is that he's obviously been using some of that to spur and support some of the protests. So clearly there's a lot of factionalism here.
But do you think there is? Does it feel like there's a pivotal moment where it could go either way at this point? And obviously we have no way of knowing. I mean, we're getting bits and pieces from the outside.
The heroism of students, the heroism of protesters is something I think we respond to particularly well here in the United States. But you know, my money is usually on the tanks, and it doesn't seem like major changes have come yet, and I don't see, at least, where they're coming, at least in the near term.
Okay, let me throw this out there. Social media, because that's how we're getting so much of our information, Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. Is that a game changer in many ways? Because you can't control the message. I mean, no matter how repressive the government.
It's a game changer in the sense that you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. You can't just pretend. Remember, I think Jeff is exactly right. We remember the successful ones, but as you point out, there are many unsuccessful ones. Tiananmen Square, 1956 in Hungary, 1968 in Czechoslovakia, the Shah of Iran. Khomeini, the guy who eventually overthrew him, tried once before, about 10 years earlier. It didn't work. He got crushed. So what will make this a game changer? It's not going to be Twitter. I have an enormous respect for what Twitter has enabled to happen, and it will bear witness to this, and it will allow for some degree of organization. But ultimately, the real decision is, will the regime decide that they are willing to be brutal enough to repress it? If you are willing to be brutal, you can almost always repress this stuff, because human beings are human beings. You tell them, you stand in these squares and protest, and you will be mowed down. Many fewer people come out in those central squares.
Parag, you agree with that? Yeah.
I think that in the you can have a period of chaos that can last for weeks, months, even years. I point again to Ukraine, a case where 5 years after the Orange Revolution, which we backed, lots of students, lots of young people out there, the security forces eventually were worn down morally and physically. They just refused to open fire at some point. And yet 5 years later, it's still a government. We don't really know who's in charge. Any given week, after any given election, we still don't know. And the opacity of the Iranian system dwarfs that of any other in the world. So I can imagine a really sort of
count me too as a Twitter skeptic. You know, you're talking about 5,000 people, 50,000 people on Twitter. This is a country of millions and millions of people. This is a big country. This is much bigger than Iraq. This is a big, sophisticated country with a big military. I just think ultimately Twitter is going to be a curiosity, but not the game changer.
Right. The game changer, Campbell, is that there is a division among the very powerful elites of the country. So if we see a change, if we see a shift, if this starts snowballing, and it could, it will be not so much, I hate to say this,
from
because of the,
down.
right, not from the bottom down. It won't be these heroic students, and God knows they're heroic, but it will be because the Ayatollahs, broke with Khamenei, the senior leader, because important members in the government did. Some members of the army decided that this was not the right thing. That's where we've got to see real cracks and further cracks.
All right, we'll end it there. Parag, Fareed, and Jeff, thanks so much.